something where I can kind of like build those relationships and essentially, make more money.
Jodie, thanks so much for coming on the Sales and Sports podcast. So excited to catch up.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm
Pleasure.
very excited.
Pleasure. So tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about my journey where I started because it is a long one, but I'll be very short. So I am coming from being a bartender. Mm-hmm. So before I did the program, before I got into tech sales, I was a bartender, and essentially I was in hospitality for like about 10 years on and off. But in between that, I actually did I went to university,
Nice.
but I did actually drop out.
Okay.
I studied psychology or criminology, so
Nice.
I did that, but I dropped out and I just figured it just wasn't really for me.
Yeah.
And I think after I dropped out, I went through a couple years of trying to figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so there was a couple years where I was trying to figure that out. And while I was on that journey, I actually discovered coding. So I got into coding and I actually taught myself how to code a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that, and then I ended up finding an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing a software engineering apprenticeship.
Nice.
And so I got into that journey. And that was like my first kind of like journey into tech as an industry. Mm-hmm. So things with the apprenticeship didn't work out. I didn't go into it, but it was a really good experience that I had. I learned a lot, and I definitely think it got me to where I am today, actually.
Yeah.
And then I think after that, it was just, again, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And there was this influencer that I was following, the Tech Corner, and she's really big on just, people getting into tech industry and the fact that there are jobs in tech where you don't have to know how to code.
Yeah.
And that was her whole thing. And then that's how I got into or heard about tech sales.
Yeah.
And then from then on, I did more research and I was like, you know what? I think this might be, something that, could be for me. And then that's when I started on that journey of like researching, and then I found Entr Tech, and then here we are. So that's kind of the journey. But
wow. So cool. Funnily enough, we've had lots of people come through Entr Tech that realised uni as well wasn't for them. Like university, they didn't complete the journey of uni, and then they realised, okay, we'll go down a different route, and then they find tech sales is such a good way to get into. Funnily enough, coding, I want to know what that was like, because actually, funnily enough, it helps you for your role you're joining. We'll go into that because it's still I guess an engineering software that you're selling along those lines?
Essentially.
We'll get into that. But how did that help? What was coding like? How come you didn't want to go down that route? Because coding and sales are very different.
Yep. So when I got into coding, so when I did start it, it was kind of like by accident. So it was when I was discovering all these different roles in tech, because there's so many, it's very broad. Yeah. And I was like, oh, wow, there's just so many different roles, so much to do. And I got into, we call it front-end coding. So everything that you see on the website, like all the features, everything that you see visually, that was what basically I was doing. I was coding web pages and websites. And I liked the creativity of it, and I loved like the problem solving, and that was what I was drawn to. I love being creative and just solving problems. And so I just really enjoyed that aspect of coding. So I used to have I used to post on Twitter like all the things I used to code, and I built a bit of an audience, and that was kind of like my thing. And so when I did my software engineering apprenticeship, it was just more of that, getting that experience of like problem solving and really, working on an actual real life problem and, working on a project. And that's what I really enjoyed. But I think over time, there was a few issues that I came across in that apprenticeship that I felt like, although I do enjoy this, I think it is very too technical for me and it's too restricting for me, and I want something that shows more of my personality and something where I can kind of like build those relationships and essentially, make more money. I do have a lot of goals, and I do have a lot of things I want to achieve, and I think financial independence is one of them. And I think that's why I was kind of like, tech sales, that is something that I'm, drawn to. Like, I want to be able to, be rewarded for my work and actually, earn and grow.
And maybe double your base salary. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can't do that in a non-sales role
Exactly.
when you're coding. So that's so cool. And funny enough, like we've had apprentices come on Entr Tech. They've done apprentice for a couple of years and then decided it's not for them. And actually they realised tech sales pays much more than an apprentice. Were you being paid as an apprentice? Or
Yeah.
Okay, so you thought actually the step up was in working in software sales. And then talk to me about hospitality. So my parents are in the hospitality industry. My brother works in hospitality. My family, worked in restaurants and hotels. So I know what it's like. So how was that? Because you meet a lot of fun people and develop a lot of skills that probably you might not know at the time, but when you're going to interviews, you probably realize a lot of transferable skills from working with people to sales and software sales. So how was that journey working in hospitality? Where did you work? You must have some good stories. And then how was that transition to tech? How did that move?
Literally, I loved working in hospitality. I think I like, customer facing roles. I like talking to different people. I feel like even the team that you work with, I've worked in pubs, I've worked in bars, clubs. I used to work in Weatherspoons.
Nice.
So I've done it all, and just that working with a team, and just it just feels like you're very like tight knit, and everyone just understands the good and the bad of hospitality. And you learn so much about yourself, and you develop so many skills, like how to build a rapport with people, how to have a conversation with anyone, how to work within a team. And it's all these different skills that I feel like definitely in those interviews that I was doing, it definitely helped to convey I have all these transferable skills that I've gained from hospitality, being able to have conversations and build rapport, and just be able to build those relationships was something that I was able to then sell in these interviews with these companies that I know what you're looking for, and these are the transferable skills that I have. So I love my hospitality background. It's made me who I am today. I don't think I'd be as confident and as comfortable with talking to different types of people if it wasn't for that. So I'm very grateful for my experience. So.
And also like it's hard work, right? So if you're going into these interviews, you can say I've worked 10-hour shifts or however long it is. I've served customers that are actually super tricky, maybe sending back food or complaining about their drinks, and people have had one or too many drinks to have. You're almost negotiating with the customer once you're in the job. So it's those people skills and soft skills that you develop that are so important to getting into a role like tech sales. And that's why I say to anyone who's listening or watching, like any kind of hospitality or client facing people jobs you can do, just stand you in so much good stead. And like if you say you've got a decade of hospitality experience, people know you're not scared of hard work. You're obviously a team player. You can get stuff done independently, but also as a team. So super cool. Love that. And then tell me about the time on Entr Tech. How did you find that? Obviously, I met you at our meetup, which is really cool. How did you find the whole program? And then we'll go into like the interview process as well.
So I think where I was at mentally before I started this program was I essentially knew that, I have all these goals and all these things I want to achieve, but it's taking that first step. And I think taking that first step and taking action was me, doing Entr Tech. And so I think at the beginning, I was extremely nervous. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that this was the first step that I needed to take to change my life. And I definitely feel like with this program, it is what you put in is what you get. And so that was something that I was going into. It was just like, I really need to make the most of these 6 weeks because it's not long. So had to really make the most of these 6 weeks and just, connect, really take in and absorb all of that information. And I definitely feel like I, did my best to try and, especially that first week, it was a lot of information. It was very overwhelming, but I think after that first week, it definitely got easier to just, manage my time with my full-time job, doing this, and just really, being motivated and determined to, really, put in the work and really gain and learn as much from the program. And I definitely feel like I did that. I'm like internally grateful for all the, guest speakers that we had on and being able to ask them questions and really, get all those, nuggets of wisdom and, all those tips they were giving us. It was like really insightful. So I love that aspect, and the interactive workshops as well.
Yeah.
Just those kind of like workshops really help to, get the idea of what is it like as an SDR with like cold calling and discovery calls. So it was a lot of information, a lot to take in, but it was, honestly, it did me a world of good, especially in the interviews when, we'll get into it. But, that those questions on, what do you know of an SDR? What do they do day to day?
Exactly.
I feel like Entr Tech definitely equips me with that skill and knowledge to be able to, answer those questions. So
yeah, good stuff. No, you absolutely smashed it. And I guess interviews are like the hardest part of getting into the industry, right? Is really smashing that. And typically it's 2-3 steps, sometimes 4 steps. Talk me through your process and getting the job you were today, and maybe some other failures you had along the way with other maybe interviews. Like, how did you find that whole process? Because it is so competitive at the moment.
It was. So I think the whole process took me about 3 months. I will say the first month and a bit, I didn't really have a technique. I was kind of just applying just normally and hoping for the best. And I think that was where I went wrong. Although I was getting interviews, it wasn't as many as I could have had. And so although I did manage to get into the final stage for one company in my first month, I did notice that I wasn't getting as much responses from these other companies, because again, I was just applying them directly and I wasn't doing anything else after that. And so I think that was definitely where I went wrong. I think how things changed was I started being more targeted in my approach, and I started thinking about like, what kind of companies do I want to work for? What kind of industries do I want to target? And then I was being very specific on what I wanted and the kind of companies I wanted to work for. And I think that really kind of like changed the game for me, because it was just like, I feel like I had more of a passion. I was more excited going into, the interviews, because it was like for companies I actually wanted to work for. And another thing that I did that was different from the beginning was that started just tracking my applications, which is very simple, but I just wasn't doing it at the beginning. And I just make it way more detailed by making sure I was tracking what stage I was in with each company. I was doing outreach as well. So I was targeting hiring managers, sales managers, talent acquisition, people, HR, just the people that the right people to target for these companies, and just making sure I was doing outreach and tracking the outreach as well. So I just had a whole spreadsheet tracking everything.
Amazing.
And I think that really changed the game for me. I got way more responses. Some jobs I didn't even apply for, I just did outreach for them and I got responses. And it just really, I feel like it definitely moved the needle for me. And I realized that, okay, so things are moving, more companies are like responding, and, I'm actually getting somewhere. So that was really what changed the game for me, was, having that targeted outreach and making sure I was doing research on the company, but also the people I was reaching out to, which was really important, because it helped to personalize and make my outreach more relevant as well. And that got me more responses. And then that also, got me the interviews that I was looking for. So that definitely was something that I wish I did at the beginning, but I didn't. But good feedback. That definitely changed everything for me. So
unreal, like such good advice. And also, like, if anyone's listening, you're almost, what sounds like what you were doing, you were basically doing the SDR job before you're an SDR. So you're like running the whole interview process and applications process like you were a sales rep. So like tracking your leads, researching who you're going after, being really meticulous on like tracking things like a CRM, and then also just adding notes and following up with people. So that's amazing. And feedback from the interview that you got to the last stage, they give you feedback. Some companies just can ghost you. Do they give you any good feedback or not?
Because I've had a few final stages. Are you asking for the one I got the job? Or?
No, the ones that like you didn't.
So general feedback that I did get from multiple companies was, They liked how bubbly I was. They liked how personable I came across, and I think that was like a consistent theme with all these interviews, was just they liked how I carried myself, and I was able to have conversations, and I was really, you know, personable. So that was something that I got quite a lot. With the mock calls that I did as well, some of the feedback was they loved my tone. They loved how, you know, the questions that I would ask. Some negative feedback was more on just making sure I wasn't coming in with the pitch too early. I think at the beginning that was a lot of the feedback I was getting, and I think it is a common feedback for new SDRs or people who are interviewing, going into the pitch way too early and not really allowing for more
questions.
Questions and just a more genuine, you know, natural conversation. So that was something over time with each interview I got better at doing, but it is something that you do have to learn. And I think it's through practice you can get to that point where you understand that, you know, how to really structure your mock calls and really get that natural flow of conversation. But
Unreal. But it sounds like you hit the jackpot where you're at, because tell us a bit about, you know, your opportunity at BlueOptima. And I guess we had someone from our network, from one of our Entr Tech alumni, Kieran, worked there, said great things. So tell us about, I guess, what you'll be doing there and how well it translates to your skill set and like your background as well.
So with BlueOptima, I will say out of all the companies that I interviewed for, it was the fastest process.
Wow.
Literally from the first interview I had, within less than 2 weeks, I got hired. It was just completely transparent, very efficient interview process. And I'm guessing that was because they really wanted me. But I think from the first interview, I knew what they were looking for, and I knew that they did want someone who had experience in software and had experience or at least knowledge of, exactly, and understood it. And I feel like I did do a really good job at showing my understanding of software, what their product is, and essentially the problems they're trying to solve. So I think I was just really good at demonstrating my understanding of the product. And I think that's what helped me to stand out, was that deep knowledge that I had already basically gained through my research and obviously the experience that I do have. I think one of the main feedback that I got from my interview that I had, it was a second round interview with my team leads. This was more based on like scenario based questions. They did ask me, what do you know about BlueOptima? And instead of going into a more just a generic explanation of what they do from what you would get on their LinkedIn page or on their website, what I did, I went deeper and I used a use case scenario. So essentially I explained how you could use their solution in an actual real life example.
Wow.
So when I did that, that was something that he was quite impressed by. He was like, oh, I've never had anyone really answer that way and actually use a use case.
Really?
So I guess that showed my understanding of the product really well. And
you went above and beyond.
Exactly.
And how many stages was the interview? Because a lot of people think it's 1 or 2 stages. It's not that easy. Sometimes it's like 4 stages. How was it with
so it was, I had 3 interviews and then 1 take-home assessment. So I had the 2 interviews and then it was a take-home assessment that was 7 days to complete. And then I did final stage. So essentially,
first one's like a recruiter screen. Second one
was with the team leads.
Team lead, like SDR manager kind of style.
And then it was the assessment, take-home assessment.
And
so that was a week, and then the final stage.
Final stage with head of sales or someone senior.
So it was with my manager and another team lead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool. And I guess what are the things that excite you about getting into technology? Obviously, like how often is it going to be in the office? Is it going to be remote? What are the sort of things you're looking forward to? Like, what drew you to the company?
I'm excited in general to like start a career in a new industry because I've been in hospitality for so long, and although I did say at the beginning of the year, this was the year I wanted to change my life, I wanted to achieve all my goals, it is still surreal. But I think it's just working in a new industry is just what's exciting. And it's just like everything's new. It's
so
nothing
cool.
like,
Yes.
what I was doing before. So I think that's why I'm most
exciting.
excited. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's full time in the office for the first 8 weeks.
Cool.
For the onboarding and the training. The training will be quite intense. You know, there's a lot to learn. So
always is.
And to be honest, I've always preferred to be either hybrid or in the office, especially starting my career. I'd rather, I feel like it's just easier for like networking and just building relationships. So I'm like, great, I don't mind.
Yeah.
And then after 8 weeks, it is hybrid, 3 days in the office and then 2 days at home.
Nice.
So
good stuff.
It's perfect for me.
Cool. Yeah, unreal. I always say to people, again, if you're listening, always try and get in as much as possible, especially when you're starting out, because that's where you're going to build your connections, build your personal brand internally in the firm, learn the software, learn how things work. And that's when you can really kick on and get to where you want to get to quicker. So what was this year? You said to yourself, this year was going to be the year where you
year I wanted to change my life and just, really go after my goals. Did you
write them down or into like manifestation or how?
I did write them down. I usually do a lot of like, I kind of like record myself and record either my voice or make videos of like, okay, this is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to do.
Wow.
Every year I actually write myself an email as well.
Wow, really?
Of like what I've achieved and if I've, I did what I set myself out to do. So every year I've got that email. So I'm very excited to write that email for next year to let Jodie from last year know what I got up to and what I did. So
very cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
I can tell you're gonna absolutely smash it. I guess advice to people that are looking to break in, that have been in your situation, I guess to wrap it up, like what I guess 2 or 3 bits of advice would you give to people?
Okay, so the first advice I would definitely give, I'm going to say from a perspective of someone who may be scared of taking that first step and scared of, just taking action. I would definitely say just do it scared. Don't wait for the right time. Yeah. Don't wait when you're not scared anymore or when you feel like you're ready, because you'll never be ready. Yeah. You just take that first step. So that is like number one for me. I think that is definitely something I've applied to my own life this year. There's a lot of things I didn't want to do or even want to, attempt, but I just did it scared. So that is the first one. Yeah. I think in terms of interviewing, I would definitely say, I know people say it's a numbers game, but I also think it's more of the more targeted you are and the more specific you are, I feel like that is what will really get you moving that needle and really, getting those interviews that you want, is by really sitting down and thinking about what are the kind of organizations you want to work for, what industries do you want to work for, what exactly do you want from your next role, and be really specific about that and targeted outreach to different accounts within these companies you want to work for. I feel like will do you a lot more than just applying for as many companies as possible. So I think those are my 2 main pieces of advice. I can't think of anything more now. I'm gone blank.
Back yourself.
Those definitely exactly, back yourself 100. Exactly. I would definitely say as well, don't count yourself out so easily. Let them count you out. Don't think you have to tick every box before applying for a role as well. Exactly. So
good
definitely.
bits of advice. Thanks so much for coming on.
Welcome.
And where's the best place if people want to reach out? Is it LinkedIn? Should I link your LinkedIn down below?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah? But LinkedIn. Jodie. Jodie Koffi.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Jodie. And
so much,
excited to see you get on in the next couple of months.
Yeah, definitely. I would hope to come back after
100%,
and let you know how it's gone. And
12 months
in.
We'll read that email.
Thank you so much, Jack.
Cheers.